It started with a glance, just one innocent moment that should have meant nothing. But sometimes, it's those fleeting seconds that change everything. I still remember the first time I saw her at the family dinner. She was standing next to my cousin, smiling politely, her eyes scanning the room as if she already knew she didn't belong there. I didn't know why I kept looking. Maybe it was the way she quietly observed everything or the calm confidence she carried. But whatever it was, something about her pulled me in, and I didn't know how dangerous that attraction would become. My cousin had just gotten married a few months ago. We weren't super close, but we grew up seeing each other at every wedding, funeral, and Eid gathering. So when he married this girl from another city, no one really expected her to fit in right away. Yet, there she was, charming everyone without even trying. She was respectful, soft-spoken, always helping the elders and laughing at everyone's jokes even when they weren't funny. To everyone else, she was the perfect wife. But to me, she slowly became something else entirely. It wasn't planned. I didn't go out looking for trouble. In fact, I tried to stay away. But she'd always be there, at family barbecues, at game nights, during chai sessions. And every time she was near, something in me would shift. I started noticing the little things. How she'd laugh differently when my cousin wasn't around. How she'd hold eye contact just a second longer with me. How her touch, quick, unintentional, lingered in my memory longer than it should have. There was this one night, I still play it over and over in my head. The electricity had gone out during a family get-together, and everyone scrambled to find candles and power banks. In the dim glow, she and I ended up in the kitchen, alone for just a few minutes. Nothing dramatic happened, not really. But her hand brushed against mine while passing a cup, and for a moment, everything stopped. It wasn't the touch itself. It was the silence that followed. The silence that said, we both felt it. That's when I knew I was in trouble. I couldn't look at her the same way again. Every casual encounter started feeling heavier. Every word, every glance, every accidental smile, it all meant more than it should have. I started pulling back, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But it wasn't. And I could see it in her eyes too. She felt it. And maybe, she didn't want to forget it either. I wish I could say I had the strength to walk away. I wish I could tell you I did the right thing. But the truth is, some lines once crossed, can't be erased. And what happened next, changed everything. After that night, I tried to convince myself it was just a moment, just a random spark that meant nothing. But the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it got. Every time I saw her, I'd feel that strange mix of guilt and curiosity. She wasn't doing anything obvious. She was still the same, calm, polite, always respectful. But there was something in the way she looked at me now. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm either. It was something in between, something I couldn't explain. I started noticing things about her that no one else did. Like how she'd sit quietly during conversations, but her eyes always searched for something, or someone. She'd laugh, but there was a tiredness behind it. And when my cousin would talk, she'd smile, but never fully. I couldn't stop thinking, was she really happy? Or was she just pretending for everyone else? I remember once, she dropped her phone on the floor and I picked it up before she could. Our fingers touched again. Just like before, it was brief, but intense. We didn't say a word. We didn't need to. That silence again, it said too much. My cousin, on the other hand, had no idea. He was busy with work, constantly traveling, barely home. I'd see her at family events more than I saw him. And somehow, that made things worse. Because now, I wasn't just seeing her more often, I was starting to understand her. Her loneliness. Her effort to always appear perfect. And beneath all of that, someone craving connection. I knew this was dangerous. She was my cousin's wife. Off limits. But the more I tried to stay away, the more the tension grew. It felt like we were walking a tightrope, both trying not to fall, but secretly wondering what it would feel like if we did. A few weeks later, everything took a turn I wasn't ready for. My cousin got a job opportunity abroad, something big, something he couldn't ignore. He planned to leave for a few months, maybe longer, and guess who he trusted to keep an eye on things while he was gone? Me. He pulled me aside during a family lunch, gave me a spare key, and said, "Just check in on her sometimes. She's not used to being alone." He said it with a laugh, like it was nothing. But inside, I froze. Now, it wasn't just occasional meetups at family gatherings. I was expected to visit her home, their home. The place where their life was built. It felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. But she greeted me with the same calm smile, offered tea like everything was normal. Only, it wasn't. At first, the visits were short. Just basic check-ins, lights, locks, groceries. But as days passed, our conversations got longer. She talked about her childhood, her dreams before marriage, the things she missed. I listened, and in those quiet moments, I forgot who she was to me. It didn't feel like I was talking to my cousin's wife. It felt like I was talking to someone I was meant to understand. Meanwhile, other parts of my life started slipping. Friends noticed I was distant. My mother asked why I seemed distracted at home. I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, but deep down, I knew I was getting too close. And the worst part? I didn't want to stop. One evening, I found myself sitting on their couch, watching a movie with her, the lights dimmed. Nothing happened. But the silence between us said everything. It was getting harder to pretend. Harder to hide. And I wasn't sure how much longer we could keep this secret. That night, something changed. The way she looked at me, quiet, uncertain, but no longer hiding, was different. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something deeper, something neither of us dared to name. I left in a hurry, my mind spinning, heart racing. I couldn't sleep. Her voice, her presence, that moment on the couch, it stayed with me long after I walked out her door. The days that followed felt heavier. Every knock on her door, every shared cup of tea, every stolen glance, it all added up. We spoke less, but the silence between us grew louder. There was a storm building, and we both felt it. One wrong move, one honest word, and everything could fall apart. Still, we kept pretending. Then came the unexpected. My cousin called from abroad and said he might extend his stay. "She's okay, right?" he asked casually, laughing. "You're keeping her company?" My throat went dry. I said what I had to. "Yeah, she's doing fine." But inside, I felt like a liar. A few days later, I showed up at her house, planning to keep it brief. But the moment she opened the door, I saw it, something wasn't right. Her eyes were red. She looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally drained. We sat in silence for a while. Then she whispered, "Do you ever feel like you're stuck in someone else's life?" That question hit me hard. Because yes, I did. Every day. She stood up and walked toward the window, her back to me. "I didn't choose this. None of it. I just ended up here." Her voice trembled slightly. I didn't know what to say. But I stood too, my chest tight. The air between us felt heavy, electric. And that's when everything started to unravel. She turned from the window slowly, her eyes meeting mine, not with confusion anymore, but with something more final, more certain. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low. My heart pounded. I had no idea what was coming, but I knew this moment was going to change everything. I nodded, barely able to breathe. "I wasn't supposed to marry your cousin," she said. "It was rushed. Arranged. My parents thought it was a good match. I didn't fight it. But the truth is, someone else was in the picture before him." She paused. "Someone I wasn't allowed to choose." I stood there, frozen. Who was he? She gave a bitter smile. Someone I still think about sometimes. And now I wonder if this cycle is repeating all over again. If I'm about to make the same mistake twice. Before I could respond, there was a sudden knock at the door. We both froze. She looked at me, panic in her eyes. I stepped back, unsure, confused, and afraid of who might be behind it. She walked to the door cautiously, peeked through the peephole, and then everything changed. "It's your cousin," she whispered. I felt like the floor had dropped beneath me. What? He said he was abroad. She opened the door, and there he was, my cousin, standing with his luggage, smiling like nothing had changed. Surprise! I wrapped things up early, he said, stepping inside and hugging her. Thought I'd come home and spend some real time with you. She looked over his shoulder at me, her face pale. I forced a smile, trying to hide the storm that was boiling just under my skin. The tension was unbearable. He turned to me and laughed. "Hey, bro, what are you doing here?" I fumbled. "Just checking in like you asked." He grinned. "Man, I owe you. She told me you've been a real help." She didn't say a word. That evening, we all sat in the same room. Him, relaxed and happy. Her, quiet and distant. And me, battling the weight of a secret that now felt impossible to carry. I knew something had to give. But I didn't expect what came next, the message she sent me later that night, just 3 words. "We need to." I stared at the message for minutes, reading it over and over again. "We need to." That was it, no explanation, no follow-up. Just those 3 words. My heart raced as I sat there, phone in hand, imagining every possible meaning. Was she talking about a conversation? A decision? Or something we'd both tried to avoid admitting? The next day, she asked me to meet her outside, away from the house. We sat at a small cafe, tucked into a quiet street where no one would recognize us. She looked more sure of herself than ever before, but there was sadness behind her eyes. "He's back now," she began, "and everything feels wrong again. I can't fake it anymore. I know what I feel, and I think you do too." I didn't deny it. I couldn't. We had crossed a line in our hearts, even if nothing physical ever happened. It was a forbidden temptation that turned into something real, something deep. But it couldn't survive reality. We both knew that. I told her, if we act on this now, we'll hurt everyone. There's no coming back from that. She nodded slowly, tears threatening to fall. Then maybe, the only way is to end it before it becomes something we regret. And just like that, the decision was made. We said goodbye with heavy hearts. No dramatic scenes. Just silence. The kind that stays with you. Weeks passed. I distanced myself from the family. No more visits. No more calls. I heard from others that they had moved to a new city, started fresh. I told myself it was for the best. But just when I thought I had left it all behind, I received a letter. No name. No return address. Just a note. "I'm not the only one keeping secrets. Ask your cousin who he really married." I froze. Confused, unsettled. Suddenly everything we shared, everything I thought I knew, felt like the beginning of a much bigger truth. One I never saw coming. That letter sat in my drawer for days. I couldn't bring myself to ask him. I wasn't even sure I wanted to know. But the words haunted me, "Ask your cousin who he really married." It made me question everything. What did she mean? Was it just emotional, or was there something deeper, something hidden beneath all the silence we had shared? Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. During a quiet lunch with my cousin, I brought it up carefully, pretending I had heard something random through a family member. At first, he laughed it off. But then his face changed. He got quiet, stared at his plate, and after a pause, he said something I didn't expect. She was engaged before me, to someone else. But it ended badly. Her family wanted to erase the past. They wanted to move her on quickly, to save face. I didn't know the full story until after we were married. I asked him if he ever felt like she wasn't truly happy. He looked at me with a strange mix of honesty and guilt. Sometimes, he said. But I always hoped she'd come around. That with time, we'd build something real. That conversation stayed with me. I realized what she had meant. She hadn't just been trapped in a loveless marriage, she had been pushed into it, carrying wounds no one talked about. And maybe, just maybe, I had reminded her of something she once felt. Something real. I never saw her again. We never spoke after that letter. But a part of me still thinks about those quiet moments, those shared silences, the connection we both knew we couldn't act on. It was a story never meant to be told out loud, a bond that existed only in stolen glances and unspoken truths. Some love stories aren't about being together. Some are about showing up when someone feels most unseen. And sometimes, the people who leave the deepest mark are the ones we're never meant to keep. She was my cousin's wife. A forbidden temptation that I couldn't forget, not because of what we did, but because of what we felt and what we didn't dare to say. And that's the kind of memory that stays, long after everything else fades. 53.